Well, a year after messing around because the country was split down the middle in terms of its leadership, Israel now has a unity government, and no doubt everyone is breathing a sigh of relief that there will be no fourth election. These comments will not be a detailed analysis of the new government, as there are others far more qualified than me to do this. But after making a few observations, there is one aspect of it that I think needs to be acted upon swiftly. Firstly, it is important to remember that Likud and Blue and White are not entering into this arrangement because they are great buddies. They are doing it because everyone has recognised that Israel needs a functioning government, if not to deal with the Palestinian Arabs, then at least to deal with COVID-19. Under the arrangement, Netanyahu will be Prime Minister for the first 18 months, at which point Gantz will take over. But you never underestimate a politician to come up with a wily plan. So to ensure that Netanyahu doesn't just collapse the government when his time is up and call new elections, legislation has been enacted to ensure that the swap actually takes place. On the periphery of this new government are Labour, Yesh Atid, and disappointing from my perspective, Yamina, the right-wing party of Naftali Bennett and Ayelet Shaked. These are two really talented politicians who can see a clear difference between right and wrong, and I regret that they remain on the fringe of Israeli politics with no major influential input, at least for now. There has been a lot of wheeling and dealing for this unity government to be formed, and people have had a vocal say about who gets what portfolios and who gets to manage the various government departments. But at least they've managed to bring it all together. One interesting aspect of the new government is that they are going to set up something called a reconciliation cabinet in order to explore ways of reducing the divisiveness that is inherent in Israeli societies these days. Let's hope it works. But one of the most important features of this alliance is regarding Judea and Samaria. We all know that Likud has been itching to annex Judea and Samaria and incorporate it into Israel proper. But the reports indicate that under this unity government, Blue and White will not obstruct the government to proceed with this initiative as detailed in President Trump's peace plan. This is a big deal, as it completes a circle that started in June 1967, when Israel regained control of this territory that had been illegally occupied by Jordan for nearly 20 years. Whichever angle you approach this from, be it biblical, archaeological, historical, the area called the West Bank by much of the world has unquestionably been linked to Jewish life for thousands of years. For the so-called Palestinians to claim they are indigenous to some ancestral homeland of theirs is one of the greatest myths perpetrated on the world in modern times. Let's look at the facts. Yasser Arafat had a lifelong ambition to destroy the State of Israel. But when it became clear in the mid-1960s that this was never going to be achieved militarily, the PLO changed tactics and launched a diplomatic war predicated on challenging Israel's legitimacy for existence in the eyes of the world. The aim was to create an environment where the world would collectively agitate for the State of Israel to be replaced with an Arab state of Palestine, in order to correct a huge wrong that was implemented by the United Nations in 1948. But as we know, there has never been anything even remotely like an historic Palestinian culture in the region. The original Palestinian Arabs were mainly Egyptians and Syrians who drifted into mandatory Palestine to take advantage of employment and lifestyle opportunities created by the return of Jewish life in its biblical heartland. The Jewish pioneers were transforming a barren desert backwater into a flourishing modern society, and the Arabs there sought and enjoyed all the benefits that came with this new prosperity. So for them to subsequently claim that they are an indigenous people who have been dispossessed of their land is just one huge fraud that has been allowed to take hold over the last 50 years. I encourage the new government to get this annexation done. But I also urge people to be very mindful with the language that they use. Please God, it won't happen. But if there is ever any talk of creating a Palestinian state on parts of Judea and Samaria, I implore people to say that Israel is giving away land to the Palestinian Arabs, not giving land back. Language is important, and talking about giving land back only legitimises the Arab claims of ancient ownership, which is simply not consistent with the truth. I hope that this new unity government can do what President Trump has provided for in his deal of the century, and it is imperative that it gets done before the left-wing spoilers can do any damage. This is Alan Friedman for the Australian Jewish Association.